In this video, we will be replacing the starter in this 2001 Ford F150. Prior to starting, I have installed rhino ramps on the front wheels, as well as safety stands just in case the rhino ramps fail. On the rear tires, I have installed wheel chocks, and I have the parking brake on. The starter is located underneath the vehicle, up by the engine bay. Attempting to find the starter can be a little bit tricky, so we're going to orient ourselves underneath the vehicle. We have the passenger side tire. We have our transmission pan. We have the transmission. And we have the oil pan. We are going to be looking between the passenger side tire and the oil pan up inside the engine from underneath the vehicle. From a little bit different view, we have our exhaust system, we have our transmission, and we have our oil pan. In between all of those components, we have our starter. The starter can be identified by two cylindrical pieces of metal with wires connected to them. Prior to removal of any wire off of the starter, we want to make sure and disconnect the negative battery terminal. Because we are working on an electrical system component, we want to make sure that there is no chance of accidental starting. On the starter, there are 3 wires that we need to remove. We have 2 connection points on the solenoid and 1 connection point on the starter itself. Because these wires have been connected so long, there's a good chance that the nuts holding them on are rusted or corroded. I'm going to be spraying a little bit of Amsoil's metal protector, which is a great penetrating oil that will help me remove rusty parts. On our solenoid towards the front of the vehicle, we do have a plastic cap that is covering up our leads. That cap needs to be removed so that we can access those nuts that are holding the wires on. And some Amsoil's metal protector on those connection points as well. Using a 13mm socket with a long extension, I am able to maneuver into our first connection point and loosen the nut holding that on. And then I can slip that wire off. I'm going to then replace the nut just so I don't lose it. On the solenoid, we have 2 connection points. The first one using a 13mm socket. The second one using a 10mm socket. After that metal protector that we sprayed on there has had a chance to soak in, we can loosen these up. Lift off that wire and put the nut back on. Once we have removed all of our electrical connections, we need to remove the 3 mounting bolts. 2 of them are clearly visible on the left and bottom of the starter. The other mounting bolt is not visible. It is on top of the starter, and it is very difficult to get to, and you cannot see what you are doing. A little Amsoil's metal protector will make it a little bit easier. The second bolt is located on top of the starter. It is impossible to see it. You have to do it completely by feel using a 13mm socket with a long extension. I am able to get in around the starter to loosen that up. And then the last nut that I need to remove is back on that first lead location. We took the outside nut off. There is an inside nut that's holding this on still. So that was not completely horrible, but it wasn't a whole lot of fun either. I do like to take a look at the old one and compare it to the new one just to make sure that they look the same. If something does not look the same, you need to correct that at this point before trying to put on the new one. Installation of the new starter is done in reverse of removing the old one. I'm going to add my lowest most bolt first. This will allow me to hold the starter in place so I can then work on attempting to get that bolt on the top that you can't see and barely access. Always make sure that you are starting the bolts by hand so you do not risk cross-threading them. With this bolt on top, I'm going to be going all the way around the top of the starter. And then there's enough clearance to tighten it about one click at a time. We'll add our next bolt that we can get to a little bit easier. And we can come back and tighten that last one. Because there is a little bit of corrosion on our connectors, I'm going to use a mixture of baking soda and water to clean those off. After those leads have been cleaned, we can reinstall those on the new starter. 13 millimeter for the larger one, 10 millimeter for the smaller one. And then we have one more to do. To prevent future rust and corrosion, I'm going to be using Amsoil's heavy-duty metal protector and coating each of the contact ends. And don't forget our plastic cap. After that, we can reconnect the negative battery terminal and start our vehicle. Everything seems to be operating correctly, and this repair is finished.